Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S back here with part 3 of my plans for supporting Indigenous Australasians and Africans. Hope you checked out part 1 and 2. If not, please check them out, and I appreciate your likes and support. And I often say, oftentimes when I make videos on a certain topic, normally I cover some sort of topic, but yeah, normally if I do make any money from those videos, or like for instance these videos, these 3-part videos, if I do manage to monetize them, make any money from them, I will donate that money to more, in this case, Indigenous Australasians. And as I say, one of my biggest goals is to give Indigenous Australasians and Africans, as many of them as possible, preferably all of them really, Indigenous Africans and Australasians, a PC, laptop, and stroke or mobile phone, and tech training equipment and materials and apps and things like that, especially for people with learning disabilities across Africa to have dyslexia and autism-friendly apps and things like that. And yeah, so training to help them become programmers, coders, and just generally be financially and generally empowered. And as I mentioned, I think it's in part 2, there are many people in America and maybe even the UK and even in Europe or elsewhere who have made, who have become millionaires through creating their own apps. So I think it'd be great if Indigenous Australasians and Africans could create their own apps and maybe even become millionaires from a younger age, although money isn't everything, but I think it's the only way I can measurably support them. Anyway, cracking on with my list, so here goes. So number 21, again, recapping some of my ideas which I've talked about before. I would love to support, to work with as many social enterprises, entrepreneurs, even entrepreneurs with their who run for-profit businesses because they might want to do it as part of their PR for whatever reason, allies of people of Indigenous Australasians and Africans, maybe even businesses in Africa. And as the idea grows, as hopefully more Indigenous Australasians and Africans will be empowered so they can help even more people. But I'd love to support or enable every possible person from every possible Indigenous, African and Australasian by this year or next year to have their own PC, laptop and stroke or mobile phone, possibly all 3 or at least 1 or 2 of those things. Maybe they won't need a PC if they have a laptop, maybe they could choose one of those things. But yeah, I'd love to work with, as I say, African governments, as well as NGOs, social entrepreneurs and even businesses themselves, maybe even big businesses. Maybe they could be international, it could be an international agreement where companies could get a tax loss or instead of paying tax to the government, they could use that money to train up Indigenous Africans and Australasians, and therefore it'll be a mutual benefit for the Indigenous Africans and Australasians, but also for those companies. So yeah, I'd love to do things like that, and also for Indigenous Australasians, especially to have their own representations, and as well as Indigenous Africans, but on TV shows, and maybe make their own TV shows, like be empowered to become producers and directors of their own TV shows, their own soaps and things like that, and maybe more representation on Neighbours and Home and Away and shows like that. Admittedly, I don't really watch those shows, but if there was more representation of Indigenous Australasians, then maybe I would watch them a bit more, and maybe they could be expanded to other parts of Australasia, like the Torres and Strait Pacific Islands and New Zealand for the Maori community as well. So yeah, number 22, on that note, as I say, I would love to see Indigenous Australasians create their own TV shows, soaps, dramas and things like that, and their own plays and whatnot, maybe in the future. I know they kind of already do that actually with Aboriginal tourism centres, but yeah, I'd love to see them do that more on TV and whatnot, and be able to write their own screenplays, and all sorts of things like that, and just generally be empowered, and that sort of thing. And again, in the future, hopefully they'll get as much training as possible in terms of using apps and being able to program and code, becoming software developers and all sorts of things like that. Number 23, I'd love to see as many groups fundraise for these things, as well as provide mentorship, teaching, training, volunteers, people with those skills to go and teach those, not just monetarily, but also people making YouTube videos like this, maybe more coherently than me, and maybe taking my ideas and running with them. And if they do more research than me or work in a better way of I might be a bit envious of them, but yeah, they could take my ideas, and as long as they use them for supporting Indigenous Australasians, I'll be happy for them to do so, as I say, and Africans as well. But yeah, they can make YouTube videos like this, and then any money they make, or a certain percentage of the money they make, they could donate to, like say, 10% of whatever they make. If they wanted to, African YouTubers or Indigenous Australasian YouTubers could refund their pump that money back into their own community and things like that. So they could be successful in different fields, and support as much as possible, supporting each other. But yeah, so I'd love to see philanthropists, charities, NGOs, maybe even like the Giving Pledge or things like that could be donated towards things like this, like providing tech training, PCs, software training, and things like that, PCs, laptops, and that sort of thing. Number 24, again, I'd love to see Indigenous Australasians and Africans be supported by their governments to do at least an hour's training in science, tech, engineering, and maths, i.e. STEM subjects. So at least 1 hour of each of those, like each day, every possible day, like either online or while they're at home, distance learning, or in schools or wherever they can be taught. So they have an hour of science, tech, engineering, and maths of each of those subjects. So that's 4 hours a day, and they could be made into games, or even more than that. They could have many hours where, but obviously, I think it's important for kids to have fun as well. So I don't want it to be like boring or whatever. So hopefully it can be made into games. So they enjoy, they have science, which they learn, but they enjoy, but they also learn for the future as well. So it's they benefit in both ways. It's having fun now, but also this actually would train them for jobs in the future. Hopefully that's the plan anyway. So hopefully I'd love to see them do that every single day, like practice at least an hour in science, tech, engineering, and maths, and as many hours as possible. Number 25, I would love to see as many sport organisations, people of colour especially, but also other groups, charities, NGOs, as I say, and governments, all working together towards this shared goal, so that they can, as I say, two heads are better than one. So we are, as I say, we are stronger together. So hopefully using those resources to teach and train and support each other as much as support Indigenous Australasians and Africans as much as possible. Again, like sharing ideas and hopefully agreeing to disagree if they but I suppose some people might say a committee or a think tank. The problem is they spend a lot of time discussing things, and sometimes you go off track. So I think it would be good to have like a properly structured organisation which does have a bit of fun as well, but also looks at how to make sure that they work towards the best of their ability, towards the best possible benefit for Indigenous Africans and Australasians, so that they are actually benefiting and stick towards those sort of goals, as giving them as much training as possible in those fields I've talked about, as much as possible. Number 26, again, I'd love to see tax exemptions and the international community supporting them and working with organisations such as One Laptop Per Child and things like that, organisations like that, to maybe even big companies like, as I say, like Microsoft could do so as part of their PR, IBM, Oracle, Apple, and other such tech companies, even Dell, so that they train them in the future. Obviously, they could then work for those companies. So hopefully it'll be a mutually beneficial thing. I'd love to see all the taxes that tech companies pay even going in towards training Indigenous Africans and Australasians specifically. So all the taxes they pay all around the world to be given towards training Indigenous Africans and Australasians, as they were treated so bad in the past. So it kind of makes up for it. So that's a form of reparations. Number 27. I think it'd be great if Indigenous Africans and Australasians had their own websites and lists where they talked about who supported their community the most, who's pumped the most resources, money, training, and just general support for their communities. And I mean, I'd love it to be part of my legacy as well, but obviously big companies might do it for their own financial gain as well, but at least it'll be a mutually beneficial thing. Yeah, like hopefully also they'll have training in terms of making their own websites and things like that generally. So as I said before, like making their own games on websites, gaming websites and things like that, which people could visit. And the more people who visit, obviously, just like a normal website works, I suppose, but in this case for gaming. So hopefully they could sell advertising space on that, or even charge a small amount for playing games or things like that. Number 28, hopefully this will turn some negative situations into positives, as I often say. 29, again, I hope for as many people of colour, Black, Asian, mixed race, and Native Americans around the world to support Indigenous Australasians. So if this list is quite long. Number 30, in the future, it'd be great also to have a list of the top 30 or whatever, or even top 100 or top 1,000 Indigenous Australasians in science or in tech or engineering or maths or other areas like that, and or even top 30 or more Indigenous entrepreneurs and things like that. So I think those would be great things to see. But obviously, it will probably take a lot longer than I hope for. But I'd love to do it straight away, like to achieve these things straight away. But it might take 5 or 10 years. But at least planning it now hopefully will help us in the future. So anyway, sorry if I was waffling, and I'm out. Peace out.